Well, we've not been having as clean Lagos as we used to, and of course, it's a challenge to everyone. Health is affected, could be affected. Some are already affected. If something is not done, it could spread among others, and not to mention that this is wasted resources in this waste. Well, let's speak the $400 million trash problem of Lagos with Mr. Bimbola Agbenjo. He's the ESG business manager at IPMC. Mr. Agbenjo, good morning. Welcome to the program.
Good morning. Good morning.
Great. So you call it...
thank you for having us.
Great. In an article that you shared, you call this a $400 million trash problem. I believe you're referring to Lagos.
Yes.
How did
that headline speaks to... The headline speaks to the current waste situation in Lagos. And it's putting a data-backed lens to the current waste management issue in Lagos. If we start to speak about the waste management issue in Lagos, everybody knows what the problems are. The infrastructure is being overstretched, and the government hasn't invested enough in changing or upgrading this infrastructure. So that is how that headline and that figure was brought about.
Okay, but when you say government has not upgraded and all that, just a couple of years down the line, Lagos used to be really, really neat. We had a system then. Is it the change in the system that has brought the waste back? Have we had more people in Lagos? Or is it a change in attitude? What exactly would you connect to this change of we are discussing waste management again in Lagos? It's supposed to be a phase we have gone away from, or we have outgrown.
Okay, thank you very much for that question. So it's a bit of the three things you mentioned, but one particular factor that we have to point out is that the waste infrastructure system in Lagos needs to be expanded. I would give an analogy with the transport system. The transport system for the longest time in Lagos had buses. But in today's Lagos State, we have realized that buses are not just enough for Lagos State. The state has invested in trains. The state has currently invested in waterway transportation. This is similar to the waste management issue. For a very, very long time, Lagos has operated a linear waste infrastructure model where the waste is just collected and is going to be dumped at a landfill or at a dump site. That model no longer works for the size of Lagos. Lagos is currently overwhelmed with the amount and size of waste that even just collecting and going to dispose is a problem. And we are seeing that that infrastructure is breaking down and now requires a circular model infrastructure where the waste is sorted from the source, where recyclable materials are taken out from the source, and in a way where you have a circular system where organic wastes and technologies like biogas and bio-waste systems are in use, and not just in form of MOUs or PPPs, but we are advocating that the states now take the lead in financing this infrastructure. Waste ties directly to the health of citizens. If the state does not take the lead role and the state is waiting for private sector to take the lead role, we will remain on the same spot for a very, very long time.
Well, Mr. Agbenjo, I believe that Lagos and the government do know about this challenge, and that Lagos cannot continue to operate in a linear structure when it comes to waste management. And that's why you have the Ministry of Circular Economy. Or don't you think, or perhaps is it too early to expect to feel such the impact of this ministry, because they are supposed to fill in the gap when it comes to waste management and, you know, divert some of this waste into resources.
Yes, yes, there is a ministry, and yes, you're seeing a lot of activity from the state officials and from the state government, but it boils down to the financing mechanisms behind these policies. You're seeing a state that is mouthing circular economy drives and circular economy initiatives, but is not financing them to the scale at which they should be financed. Yes, we are seeing pilot technologies. For example, I will speak about the Ikosi biogas system, but Ikosi is just one market. Can we calculate how many markets that need that kind of system that are in Lagos? And the state is championing just one market having a biogas system. So you're seeing a disparity in the scale of investment in infrastructure, and that is what is currently causing the breakdown. In terms of policy, the state is pushing out a lot of policy. It has banned single-use plastics. It is putting in a lot of extended producer responsibilities. But when it comes to financing this infrastructure to the scale at which it should be financed, we are seeing a very, very stark contrast. I will give you a figure that will baffle you, Ma. So in 2024, based on Lagos State's audited financial reports, Loma spent about 20-something billion, 23 billion naira on managing waste, and about 95% of that went into operational costs. That means the running of trucks, that means the paying of personnel, and you're not really seeing the state invest in capital infrastructure. Where is the investment in recycling centers? Where is the investment in material recovery facilities? So you're not seeing that capex investment by the state, but you're seeing a lot of operational investments. And even recently, as at last week, Saturday, we saw His Excellency Babajide Sanwo-Olu come out and also participate in this waste, clearing out waste from the streets. But we will continue to have those situations if the state does not start to invest properly in the waste infrastructure and not just pushing out policies.
But would you say that the financing should be solely from the government? What about the private sector? Are these not business opportunities for the private sector to key into? Hello, Mr. Genjo. I wonder, can you hear me?
Yes,
okay, so
I can hear you. So the private sector participation in waste management, currently, maybe I should just give an explanation of, there is current private sector participation in waste management. The waste that is collected from household and commercial premises is done by private sector participants. They are generally called PSPs. But these PSPs are in a state of dire because they are surrounded by infrastructures that are not working. And I'll give you an example. For example, a private sector participant that is servicing a residential area and has collected the waste. When this private sector participant's truck goes to the landfill, it takes days for them to offload the waste they've collected. So that leads to a breakdown in the infrastructure, and that is what you're currently seeing in communities and in areas where there are complaints about, oh, we don't see the trucks as frequently as they should see. These trucks are spending days trying to offload the waste that they've collected already. And that is a fault of the government by not investing properly in the landfill. You only have about 2 or 3 landfills, and from the last interview by the Honorable Commissioner of Environment, Lagos State is even dumping its waste in a neighboring state, which is Ogun State. Lagos is borrowing Ogun State's landfill, one of the landfills, to dump its waste. So you're seeing that the current system cannot hold. And while there's private sector participation, the infrastructure around this private sector participation is still heavily dependent on the state government. So which is why the financing still comes to bear. I hope that explains it, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you for that. But don't you think that perhaps the attitude of Lagosians, Nigerians, in managing waste also has a contribution to this? I mean, we saw there where people are dumping their waste at, on the roads and all of that. People have the heart to bring their waste from their homes, and actually dump in water, dump on the wayside. I mean, isn't that a problem also?
Yes, that is a very, very huge challenge. And also, it's funny enough that still sits with the government and the people. There is a huge need for advocacy and also penalties. If you look at Loma's books and the amount that Loma has spent in terms of enforcement of the environmental rules and environmental laws in Lagos State, you will see that there is a lot to be desired. In terms of enforcement of these rules, people abide the rules when they see stringent enforcement. So, for example, when these penalties around dumping waste are heavily enforced, you will see that there will be a drastic reduction in this kind of activities. But also, you also need to factor in that the infrastructure to collect this waste is not just there. You're looking at communities that have collected their waste, and even from this previous environmental sanitation that happened on Saturday, there are still complaints that, okay, yes, we've done the environmental sanitation, but where are the trucks to cart away this waste? So you're seeing that it's not a one-size-fits-all. There are different sides to the problem, but the state has to take a lead in addressing this waste issue and waste infrastructure breakdown.
Yeah, and I got really excited a couple of years ago when they talked about generating electricity from the waste, especially the one at Olushosun, and we are yet to see all of that. So you can imagine if this waste that are also resources are put into very effective use, some of our problems, infrastructural problems, would actually have been solved.
I 100% agree with you, ma'am. And I think a few months ago when I was on the show, we also still mentioned that similar project.
Yeah.
And we are all still waiting for the state.
We saw the master plan. We saw it, It was shown to us.
It speaks to what I'm talking about. That project is being privately handled. It is privately financed. The state is not financing that project. So you really can't hold anybody responsible. The state is just concessioning the landfill to that company and expecting the company to look for the financing to carry this out. So while we wait for it, I am advocating, and we are advocating, that the state should take a lead in financing this infrastructure and not just wait for private sector to come and put in private sector money. The state actually needs to finance the infrastructure.
All right, thank you so much for your time. We hope